Morning. Welcome to Virtual Church. Hey, Scott, Jane, Gail, Jessica. I hope that wherever you are, that you got a chance today, you got a moment to let the responsibilities and the distractions of being at home, kind of let them go for a little bit. We're going to ask God to come hang out with us wherever you are, in your room, your car, outside. Morning, Clay. Hola, milagro. This heavy weight on my shoulders, yeah, I woke up with this heavy weight, and I bring it here. Yeah, when I wake up with this heavy You are my chain loser. Sing that to him. You are my chain loser. So lose my chains. So lose my chains. I woke up with anxiety of who I'm supposed to be. Yeah, I woke up with anxiety of what I've become. Yeah, maybe it's a broken heart. I just don't know where to start. But I bring it here today. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. So lose my chains. So lose my chains. Lose my chains. Wanna lose my chains today. Wanna lose my chains today. So would you come bring your freedom. Bring me forgiveness. Come bring your peace. You're my redemption. Sing that to him. Come bring your freedom. Come bring forgiveness. Yeah. Come bring your peace. You're my redemption. Maybe while we're singing this song, I'd love for you guys to type in, where are you feeling God this week? Where is he showing up? I was in the throes of self-loathing. I actually entered the throes of self-loathing quite often. And one of the biggest kind of things to pull me out of that is gratitude. So what are you grateful for this morning? Where is God showing up this week? I want you to type that in. I want to see it. I want the rest of us to see it. You're showing up in my life. Yeah, you're showing up in my life. Even when I don't know, you're showing up in my life. I wanna notice, I wanna up in my life. Yeah, you're showing up in my life. Oh, you're showing up in my life. I wanna notice, 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 notice. Come bring your freedom. Come bring forgiveness. Come bring your peace. Be my redemption. Come bring your freedom. Bring us forgiveness. Bring me your peace. You're my redemption. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. So lose my chains. So lose my lose my chains. So let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, you are my song. The King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, you are my song, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, yeah, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh. The King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in my waves. Oh, you are my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, you are my. Sing that again. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in my waves. Oh, you are my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, you are my song. 'Cause you are good, good. Yeah, God, we're grateful for a great biopsy report. Is that for you, Delbert? Gail, grateful Sammy's come home from Dell Children's yesterday. Yeah, Dave, I saw some pictures of you on Instagram with your grandson. I looked, quality time we're getting with people. And God, help us seize those moments. Now, and the rest of this week, as we try to be in the moment with you, with our family, with the people that are around us. We can see the beauty, focus on that. You're never gonna let me down. 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 Oh, 'cause you are good. 'Cause you are good. You're good.
Morning, everybody. Glad you're with us today. It's good to, I can't say, I wish I could see you. There's nobody who wishes that we could see each other more than me. This is an amazing season, but it's difficult to be separated like this, to be segregated like this. And there are many things going on that are great. There are so many of you who are stepping up and serving in the community and expressing your generosity in creative ways. And it's amazing to see, but I miss you. Kind of over this empty room thing. We've asked a number of volunteers to come and begin practicing what it will be like when we're open. In between the services, we have cleaning protocols and preparation things that we want to do, and we have folks who are willing to set aside some time on Sundays to begin to come back, and we're looking forward to that. But as we see the spike, and we see uncertainty in the trends, I'm not willing to put you at risk. We can do this for a while. Don't like it. But until we believe that we can do this safely and do this in a way that allows us to enter back into our community in physical proximity with safety, we're just gonna take our time. Encourage you to continue to find ways to express your faith in your community, whether you're coming and helping out at our food distribution centers, or whether you're meeting with people online in Zoom meetings or FaceTime meetings, or however you're connecting. Continue to do that. And there'll be a day believe me, there will be a day when we'll be back. But until then, stay strong, stay thankful and generous, and know that even though we are not physically together, we are together. So thank you for that. And what I'd like to do is pray and give God the thanks for the way that He is seeing us through. And we look forward to the day, and there will be a time when probably the things clear up, and we'll let you know, and we'll open up the doors, and it's going to be a great day. But until then, we are thankful that we can be together like this. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you for the steadfastness and the faithfulness of this family of faith, for your provision in these most unusual times, for the generosity and the sacrifice and the service that is being expressed all across our city and even around the world. Pray that you will sustain us and hold us in the hollow of your hand, and that soon and very soon we will be together again in this place to praise and to fellowship and to worship together. We look forward to that day, and yet we wait patiently for it, thanking you for your goodness. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and all God's people said, amen.
I live for the moment, still in your presence. All the noise dies down. Would you speak to me now? 'Cause you got all my attention. I wanna linger and listen. Can't miss a thing. 'Cause Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. All I want is to live within you, love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for a touch of heaven. Oh, oh, you're the fire in the morning, you're the cool in the evening, breath in my soul, the life in my bones. There is no hesitation in your love and affection. It's the sweetest of all. Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart needs something new, so I surrender all. All I want is to live within you, love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. have your way in me now. Open up my heart. Open up my heart to you. Open up my heart to you now. So do what only you can do. Jesus, have your way being done by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper, Lord. I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for a touch of heaven.
It was the day that everything changed. My family, I had moved them from their home in Dallas. We had lived in Dallas for almost 22 years. We had left Dallas and we had moved to the San Francisco Bay Area a few months earlier. Our 3 daughters were all teenagers at the time. My wife got a job teaching in an elementary school, and so our routine was that I would go out in the early morning and I would go for a run, and I was enjoying the cool fall weather in the Bay Area. My wife would leave and go for her day at school, and I would come home and try and get our 3 teenage daughters out the door for their day. And I had just returned from my morning run that day, and it was probably about 10 minutes till 7 in the morning. And I walked into the living room and I turned on the television, and instantly what I saw overwhelmed me. Because what I saw on the screen of the television were the Twin Towers in New York City, each billowing smoke and fire. I stood paralyzed for a moment as I heard the voice of of the broadcasters say that as far as they could tell, that 2 commercial airliners had been intentionally flown into the 2 Twin Towers in New York City. As I stood there, almost breathless, they cut away, and I think it was Dan Rather was in the newsroom, and he was explaining how the 2 towers were on fire, and there was also reports of a fire at the Pentagon, that a plane had crashed into the Pentagon, and there were perhaps other aircraft headed for Washington, D.C. And as he spoke, he said, we're receiving word right now that the South Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City has collapsed. And I remember thinking, before they cut back to the shot of Manhattan, that's not possible. I mean, skyscrapers don't collapse in on themselves. I was incredulous. I said, well, that has to be a mistake. And then the shot came of the Manhattan skyline, and it was filled with smoke and gray ash and dust. And there, through the clearing, you could see the absence of the South Tower. Immediately ran upstairs, and I remember grabbing my daughters in their beds, and I said, you have to get up right now. Get out of bed. And if you're familiar with the habits of teenagers, they're not really enthusiastic for entering into the day without preparation. And I said, I don't care, get up, come downstairs right now. And I physically pushed them down the stairs onto the sofa, and I said, look at this. Today, your lives are changing. The world is changing right now. Never forget this day. I think we'd all agree that the world that we lived in on September the 10th, 2001, was a different world than the one we lived in when we woke up on September the 12th, 2001. The world had changed. I would suggest that we are in such a time, that we are living in the midst of a cataclysmic change in our world. Now, it's not happening as 9/11 did in one moment, in one morning of one day. It's glacial, it's evolving, it's happening over time. But there are none of us who would look at how we entered the year 2020 and imagine that we will leave it the same way. And we are watching our world change all around us. It's as if the towers of our expectations of the world that we live in are falling in slow motion. And the future, as the dust is beginning to clear, is completely uncertain. I like to imagine that we don't know what the future holds. But I like to think that this is the end of the beginning. And that if this is the end of the beginning, there are many things we don't know about what is ahead. But there are 2 things that we know for sure. One is that the world will be a different place. At the end of this journey through this unprecedented season, the world will be different. We don't know how exactly, but we know for sure that it will change. And the second thing that we should know is that it has to be better. The world has to be a better place to go through this kind of trauma, to suffer this kind of disruption. Has to produce something out of the ashes that is more pure, that is more refined, that is better than when we began. I like to say that the School of Hard Knocks charges too high a tuition for us to fail the class. So how do we do it? How, if this is in fact the end of the beginning of the entering into a new world, that our world is changing even as we speak, how do we make the world a better place? What do we do? How do we enter into this new life? Over the next 4 weeks, I want to suggest 4 steps, 4 things that we can do, 4 very simple things to help us enter into a better world. The first thing that we have to do is we have to get up. We have to get to our knees, and then we have to take a stand. The first thing we have to do before we walk, before we move, is we have to stand up. Stand up and believe in what we say we believe. Stand up for what we know is true and right and good. The second thing we have to do is we have to step out. And what that means is you have to take the next step. Put one foot in front of the other. Do the next right thing. I don't know what is ahead, but I know what the next right thing is, and that is my next step. The third thing that I think we should do is we should press on. We should never quit. We should not give up. Because we will fall and we will fail, and there will be more unexpected twists and turns and setbacks, and some of the things that this new day presents to us will be unwelcome challenges, but don't ever quit. Don't stop. Press on. Don't give up. Don't quit. When you get knocked down, get back up and keep going. And the fourth step is to celebrate. Celebrate the hell out of it. And I mean that in a very theological way. Celebrate the good. Celebrate the new. Celebrate those things that are blessings. Be thankful. Rejoice. Praise. Focus on those things that are life-giving. Celebrate every chance you get. See, it's my prayer today. It's my prayer for everyone today that if this is the end of the beginning, and if we are entering into a new world, that we would do so by faith. That we may not know what the future holds, but we know the one who holds the future. And that we would today take a stand. That for someone, it is my prayer that this would be the day that everything changes. That this would be a new beginning. Over the next 4 weeks, I want to share with you a story. It's one of my favorite stories from the Bible. It was a story that originated 1,300 years before Christ, almost 3,300 years ago. Hundreds and hundreds of generations before us, there was a story. It happened during the time of what the Bible calls the period of the judges of Israel. From about 1300 BC to about 1100 BC, or about a 300-year period in there, after the conquest of the land under Joshua. And before the rise of Samuel and the kingdom of Saul and David and Solomon, there was a period where the land of Israel was ruled by judges. And the most famous judge you probably heard of, his name was Samson. He had a hair thing. He had this beautiful hair. And I'm not a big fan of Samson, and it's not just because of hair envy. It's actually because Samson had this thing for this woman named Delilah, and that wasn't a good thing, and things go badly. But he was just one of the judges. He wasn't my favorite judge, by the way. My favorite judge is named Ehud. And Ehud was my favorite judge because he's the only left-handed judge. We don't know much about him other than he was left-handed. And so Ehud is my favorite judge because I am left-handed. The last judge was a prophet named Samuel. But the period of the judges was a dark period in the history of the people of God. There's a verse that is repeated throughout the book of Judges. And it says that this was a time when there was no king, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. At some point during these 3 centuries of decline of the people of God, there apparently was a famine a catastrophic famine. And we think we know what food insecurity is and what it means to go hungry. No, this is a whole nother level. This is a famine, a great famine where there was no food. We ran out of house pets months ago. Your neighbor started to look delicious a couple of weeks ago. This was a famine that was taking people's lives, not just their livelihoods. And the story that I want to share with you is the story about a family, and it's about a man who was a good Jewish man. He was a Benjamite. He was living in the city of Bethlehem. He was an Ephrathite from the tribe of Ephraim. And he took his family, his wife and his 2 sons, and he left the comfort of the hills of Jordan and went across the Jordan River into the land of Moab. Now, this would be akin to living in the hills of Westlake and moving to the Permian Basin. Moab was not a popular place. The Jewish people hated the Moabites. The Moabites identified themselves as the descendants of Lot. Lot was Abraham's cousin, but Lot was perhaps most famous for he and his wife lived in a little town called Sodom and Gomorrah that was in the middle of Moab. And this good Jewish man took his wife and his children, and they left the hills of Judah, crossed the Jordan River, and set up shop in Moab. Why would a good Jewish man do that? Well, there was a famine, and he was trying to protect his family. And perhaps he was a good businessman, and he saw an opportunity because the trade route that ran from Egypt to Persia ran right through Moab. And maybe he thought, I can make deals with these traders and perhaps send some food to my family and my ancestors and my relatives back in Israel, and in the meantime, make a living and feed my family. And apparently everything was set up to go well until something terrible happened. The father's name was Elimelech. It means God is king. His wife's name was Naomi. And they had 2 sons named Mahlon and Chilion. And they went to Moab with every intent of not staying there a long time. They were just going there for a while. But after they got there, Elimelech died, leaving Naomi with her 2 sons and no husband. Now, you would think that she would go running back home to Bethlehem, but apparently they had established themselves enough, or their sons were talented enough or connected enough that they decided to stay. And so Naomi lived with her 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, and eventually they married 2 hot Moabite women. How do I know that they're hot? Well, it's there. It's in the Hebrew. It's right there. No, we don't know. But their names were Orpah and Ruth. Orpah, not Oprah. Oprah is a different person. This is Orpah. It's not the killer whale either. It's Orpah and a woman named Ruth. Apparently, this family, Elimelech's family, Naomi and Mahlon and Chilion and Orpah and Ruth, did very well because they stayed in Moab for 10 years. They became embedded in the culture. They probably had established themselves very comfortably in a foreign land. They were making it through when the final shoe dropped, and without warning, Mahlon and Chilion died. And neither Orpah nor Ruth had given birth to any children in 10 years. So Naomi not only lost her husband, she lost her 2 sons and lost her future as well. At this point, word came to Naomi living in Moab that God had blessed the nation of Israel and there was food once again. The famine was over. And so Naomi said, we're out of here. I am done with this Moab experiment. I don't care how well it's gone. I have buried 3 men in this land, and I'm going home. And this is where we enter the story. This is where we join the family of Elimelech, Naomi and Orpah and Ruth and Mahlon and Chilion. We join them in this unfamiliar place. We join them in the isolation of their sorrow or the weight of the uncertainty of their future. We join them in this story. This is a familiar place for us. This is a place where we are uncomfortable. This is a place where we don't want to stay. This is a place where if you're like me, you're saying, okay, this whole COVID thing, this whole quarantine thing, I'm over it. I'm out. Do you realize it was the end of February? It was the end of February when the consideration began to be shared that perhaps there was a deadly virus. Do you remember we were going to lose 1 to 2 million American people? Parts of Europe were entirely shut down. There were evidences, there were pockets of these vectoring diseases that were killing people in the Northwest and in the Northeast. And I remember that week very well because we were planning to go on our annual men's retreat. It's a great time when a couple hundred men gather together down at Mo Ranch, and it's a great, refreshing time, and I look forward to it all year. And as we approached that week, it got more and more concern about whether or not we could have this retreat. And so at the last minute, we said, no, we can't risk it. We can't take a group of men. The reports that we're getting are that this virus is too violent. And so we called off the men's retreat. And we gathered together here on March the 2nd. The next week, the reports began about the dangers of large group assemblies, and the nation began to shut down. And I remember the conversations between Monday and Friday, and by the time we got to Friday, we said, we can no longer meet together. That was 14 weeks ago. 14 weeks. I've been talking to a camera for 14 weeks. I have never in my life been separated from my spiritual family for this length of time. It is uncomfortable and it is unprecedented, and I want to go home. I don't like Moab. I don't like it here. And this is where a young woman who should have never been mentioned in human history shows up and shows us the way. Her name is Ruth. By every measure, she was a person who never should have been noticed. First of all, she was a woman. Do you realize throughout most of human history, and perhaps in most of the rest of the world today, that women are marginalized, their leadership, their influence is questioned simply because of their gender? In the entire Bible, there are only 2 books named for women of 66 books. One is named for a woman named Esther, who was a queen, and the other is named for a foreign woman with no resume, with no standing, with nothing to commend her, named Ruth. Now, the rabbinic tradition says that Ruth was a Moabite princess, but there's no indication of that. She was a simple Moabite woman. And not only was she a woman, she was a foreign woman. She was a woman that worshiped foreign gods. She was a Gentile. She was a Moabite. The Moabites were the dirt people. The Moabites worshiped a god called Shemash, which was the fish god. They worshiped fish. And they were a landlocked country whose only border with water was the Dead Sea. There's no fish in the Dead Sea. But the Moabites worshiped the fish god, and this was Ruth. And in the pantheon of the great spiritual voices that are recorded in the Bible, this was a woman who was a foreign worshiper of fish who couldn't even have a child. She was a childless widow. And yet she is the one who shows us the way home. You wonder what's going on right now? I do. I watch the news, I watch the reports, I hear the chaos in our culture, the pain that is being expressed, the anger, the frustration, the arguments, the violence that is happening in our world today. I think I understand it. Sociologically speaking and psychologically speaking, I feel that because I didn't want to get here. I didn't want to be here. I didn't bring in a virus. I didn't create all of the issues that are going on in our culture. I may have some culpability as a passive participant, but I didn't cause this. And you know what that helplessness feels like when not only were you genuinely not responsible for something, but you don't know how to fix it? The problem is too complicated, or the problem is too great. You don't even know how to make a remedy, and that helplessness turns into a frustration because we realize really truly how impotent we are. That even though we want to make a difference in the world that we live in, the world has its way with us. And out of that impetus and out of that helplessness comes a frustration and says, I have to fix something, I have to control something, I have to make something right, I have to make a difference in the world, I have to know I matter. And I see it all over our culture. And I feel it internally. I feel that frustration and that pain and that grief and that anger and that fear. It's what Naomi had to feel. In the story of Ruth, her mother-in-law, Naomi, had spent over a decade in a foreign land. She had buried her husband and her 2 sons, and she had nothing to show for it. She had lost everything. And when she heard that there was a possibility of returning to at least a familiar place, she took it. And she said to her 2 daughters-in-law, let's go back. Let's go back to Judah. Let's go back to Bethlehem. And so they make their way, but on their way, Naomi realized, I can't promise you anything. And she says to her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, you should go back. You should go back to your mother's home. You should go back to your people. And it's my prayer that God will show you kindness. And you can't come with me. Because when you get to the nation of Israel, you will have no future. You will be segregated against. You'll never find a husband. What do you think? I'm going to have another child and raise up that child and then you're going to marry that child? No. You have no future where I am going. It says that Orpah, through great sorrow, decided she would go back. She kissed her and left, but it was Ruth who said, no, I will stand right here. And in one of the most elegant confessions of faith in that which is out of their control, Ruth says to Naomi, don't beg me to leave you. Don't force me to turn back from you. Because where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Where you die, I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me. May your God deal with me ever so severely, more severely than the death of my father-in-law and the death of my husband and my childless condition. May God deal with me ever so severely if even death separates me from you. I will stand here. I may not know what the future holds, but I know what I will hold on to. And I will hold on to the faith that the God of Israel will be my God. It's a remarkable thing. It's a stunning thing. I mean, think of what Ruth knew of the God of Naomi and Elimelech. It was a God who brought a famine on his own people, drove them from their home. It was a God who took the life of a beloved husband and father and then took the lives of her beloved two sons, her husband, and left her childless. This was the act of a trustworthy God. I can tell you that that is the point where we need to be. When we come to the place where we have nothing left to hold on to, where we have nothing to lose, and everything to gain, this is the place where we make our stand. Because if I have nothing to lose, then by standing here, I lose nothing. This is the crossroads that Naomi and Ruth found themselves at, and this is where Ruth took her stand. And this is where we take ours. Coming from the chaos of the world that we have lived in for the past few months, staring into the uncertain future, we realize we are where they were. In a time where there was no king and where everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes. And I would suggest that if this is in fact the end of the beginning and we are heading into an unknown future, that now is the time to stand. Now is the time to say, from here, from this day forward, I may not know who holds the future, but I will hold on to the one who does. It's a difficult thing to find ourselves in a crossroads where what is behind us has taken from us, and what is ahead of us promises us nothing. But this is exactly the place where our lives are changed forever. And that's my prayer today. My prayer for you today is that you would come to a point in a season such as this and say, from this day forward, I will stand. I will believe what I say I believe. I will live by faith. It's my prayer today that this would be a day when everything changes. Because I believe those days are possible. I lived through it on September the 11th, 2001, along with you. I also lived through it in February 1974, February 2nd, 1974. As a young teenage boy with no direction and no purpose and very little hope, fewer prospects. I took a stand that day and I said, I don't know what the future holds, but I will hold on to you in the future. And from that day, from that stand, I continue to move from that day to this one. Do you believe? Do you believe that the world can change in a moment? I believe that a person's heart can change in a moment. If you're willing to climb to your knees and to stand up and to say, yes, I believe. Today can be the day that changes everything.
I could use a hand up to get back on my feet and stand up. Would you help me stand up and try to keep my chin up to see what you can see? Stand up. Would you help me stand up? 'Cause I could use a hand. Stand you so I can stand beside you and understand your heart, your heart, your heart.
That song's brought straight to you from Dave's message this week. Give us a chance to be creative and explore this. May we all explore this. dig into it. You see God in your week, in your day, in your job hunting or in your job, in your money spending or your money saving or your money lacking. May you feel His presence, His security, His safety, His encouragement. Come hang out with us this week on all of our different shows we got going on at 7:30, Monday through Friday. God be with you guys. See y'all next time.